Olena, it's so great to have you join this call. And as you know, we've been doing a little bit of an interview chain from different founding members of Liminal Learning. So I'm thrilled that I get to chat with you about liminal learning and education today. So thanks for joining.
No, thanks for having me. I'm
Yes.
thrilled to be on the other side
Yes,
of it.
I know. The other side of the baton handoff. So Elena, maybe just can we start by, can you talk a little bit about where you are in the world and what your work looks like these days?
Like a lot of people right now, I am in some sort of a
Mm,
transition, but also work-wise in a couple of
mm,
several ways. But also, like a lot of people in our team, at least, I am never not doing less than two or three different directions
yep.
at once. So yeah, I am a user researcher and a designer, and I've been working on kind of consultancy agency side of things for a
Mm,
while, ranging from being invited to join projects, being a part of the agency, running my own agency. So it's a whole mix of
mhm.
things. And currently, I am spending my time between user research and design projects, liminal learning, and also a couple of personal involvements, mostly on the design
Yeah.
side.
I know that you're a woman of many interests and passions and also many different degrees and training specialties. So design research, we both share that. I'm also a design researcher. And that's not something that I think is very commonly known about outside of the design world. So can you share a little bit about what design research is? And also, how did you get to design research as what you wanted to be doing from all of your past um, backgrounds and specialties?
Okay, that is such a good question, honestly. It is a good question. So, design research is basically applying a very narrow slice of social scientific
Mm,
methods towards uh, work in technology throughout the what we called vicious cycle of discovery, delivery, and evaluation,
yeah.
right? So basically, this is how you figure out potentially who may be people using your technology or service or a product, what their needs or goals or challenges may
Hmm.
be, where do they live, how does what you're trying to build is fit in or not fit in into their lives, right? And basically how they go around what you're trying to build. And this is what we call
Hmm.
discovery, but also we range throughout by evaluating solutions, maybe looking at some benchmarking, how do we perform against competitors, and literally everything in between. Like I've done so many different research projects that it's very hard to say
Hmm.
what exactly we're doing. Is this how? What would you add something to it? Like what do you think?
Yeah, I think for me, I think design research is that process of really working with people first and foremost to try to figure out what they actually need and where if design research is working with a product, for example, we're often asking how does that product or the need for that product fit into your daily life and your daily anxieties, the things you care about, the things you dream about, the things you worry about. um, and if it's questions around service and kind of the delivery of a service like a library or a hospital or even a great cup of coffee at a cafe, it's sort of like what do people hope and expect from this experience, and are they getting it, and how can we maybe change the experience to help deliver it better. And yeah, I'm curious why you, Elena, why are you drawn to design research?
And this is why it's hard to interview a researcher, isn't it? Like,
I know. I saw what you did and returned it back again.
and like I once had to interview a bunch of journalists for research
Awful.
projects, and it was about
Awful.
media, digital media, and redesign, and it was horrible, horrible. They would have a question for every
Hmm.
question, and I was like, "Oh God, is this how it
Yep.
feels to be on the other
So this is
side?"
going to be a mutual interview, and that's fine. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is how it
So
feels also.
yeah, my story here is honestly a story of building up on previous experience and continuing everything like a person might previously be doing to get to the point where they are right now. So my original degree is in electronic engineering and metrology. And this is like information and measuring systems, mostly for avionics, but not limited to. And this is very like applied electronic engineering degree. And then after that, like a lot of people in Ukraine, basically, I've done the study, but somewhere in the middle, I started doing photography and design. And this, again, this shaky road taken, right, got me to the point where I was studying to be an engineer, doing some practice, but I never had, by the end, I never had any passion to do that because my passion already went into design and photography and everything that surrounds them. And I've started working with that. So I opened my first tiny, it was like a retouching studio. So we were doing a lot of post-production for advertising, for magazines, for photographers. And then at some point, the story will make sense. Trust
It's
me.
a journey. It's
At
great.
some point,
Yeah.
it is a journey. And then I started building an RSS reader. If this is how old I'm actually am, because I still, not just I use that, I also still really miss it. And so we started building it as like a passion project because Google then closed their social features in the Google Reader. That was the year was 2012, and we all that year was 2011, and we all like remember that year like not in a good way.
I wasn't
And so
even
we
in
started.
that degree of tech, and I remember that it was one of those things that I was like, something has changed, and I don't quite understand what it is, but all the folks I know who are really in this world are upset about it. So yeah.
Yeah, because it was such a great, you could get a slice of somebody's world and curation, because like if you had a chemistry friend who would be reading their feeds and they would share the best bits with their comments, and this is how you get the best parts of the internet. But yeah, basically three of us started building like this little tiny project, and somebody had to do design and UX. And so I started doing that, and then that project grew big, and then Google Reader closed the reader, and then our project got so big we became a success disaster because there was like no way for me at that
Yeah.
time to lead that. Like right now, hindsight 2020, I would nail it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But 12 years ago, that it was not a thing at all. So it was acquired by like a small American media company. But one of the biggest experiences, aside from the insane street creds and other things, is that I realized UX and design is like very applied digital design is a job, and that I really like it. And then we were moving from Dublin to London, because back then we lived in Dublin. We were moving to London, and by then I already knew I want to study human-computer interaction. It was either human-computer interaction or more like design degree, and I chose it consciously because I know the environments where I thrive the most, and to me it is being in academia. Because this is where you are rewarded for your thinking. Again, you have the environment that supports you in that. You have very limited amount of time, like in UK that is a year, and you know how you will spend that year. So like everything, and I'm very competitive, but like internally competitive. So I knew already that I want to go through that route. And when I started looking for the degrees, I then realized that I don't want to have a design degree, because I can always get it through crafts or find mentors. Basically, I saw a lot of other ways to get better with the design aspect of design, but I knew that research was my thing, because my previous also education, the metrology one, it was about automating and automating results of the like more practical research at scale. So and which means I found a good human-computer interaction degree, and that's how I was.
Amazing.
Like I never even I haven't even doubted like that. There was no doubt that this is what I need
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah. That's incredible. one thing I'm hearing through kind of the twists and turns of your journey is like this really deep internal knowing of just kind of what's next, even if it's not this whole grand theory of, whatever. It's still like this is clear that this needs to be next. Did you have any at any point? Did you have any mentors or other people who were sort of like helping you along that route to figure out what your way in life was, or was that really like you felt like you had to forge it alone and you were learning at each step? I'm curious.
Oh, this is also a good question. I think looking back, I did have a number of them, and but they were not. It was more about like situational mentorship rather than
Sure.
formal. And they would come into my life in a lot of ways and shape and forms, but never. But that was all like kind of before I call it in my previous life. So before I moved to London, before I started that. And now, actually, looking back since my degree, which I've done, I finished it in 2017 because I also done the internship. This is where I had much more formal, more different basically amount and different relationship with more formal mentors.
Got it.
Starting from my internship boss, who then became my good friend, but she was like, again, she was instrumental in a lot of things because she was just leading by example, starting like from tiny things to sometimes just like looking at me, being perpetually confused, being very not confident in anything. And she would like just basically shake me like, listen, what is happening here? Like, you are more than capable of doing this. What is happening here? And I was like, yeah, what is happening here? Right? And so then I also had a formal relationship with the professional organization called Hexagon. I think it was born inside, like it's not Google, but it was born inside of a
Okay.
Google. And they have this framework, and the idea is that like more junior women in the industry are pairing with senior
Oh, cool.
practitioners, and for 12 weeks that you have like a
Yep.
program, you have a goal, and you work towards it. And I had amazing mentor Francesco from Canonical. We met twice, I think, or once, but on this because we were from the same batch of women, I guess, but very
Yeah.
similar. But it was our one meeting was before I had a final interview at the agency I was hoping to join after the degree, and he just spent 90 minutes with me in Tate Modern Cafe, reworking my portfolio.
Amazing.
So
Amazing. Yeah.
that was just, and it was so generous.
Yeah.
And I think like since then I've been telling the story at least 3 times a year. We are not in touch, but to me that meant a lot, just seeing her coming all in again, figuring
Yeah.
out what is how she can help me the most, and then just delivering on that, but also being very kind and on point. And so I think I was really blessed to have all this support of all these people. And then again, my leadership in my previous agency, and people who then became my friends, and we started business with some of them. So like there always was that element which was very pragmatic on
Yep.
one hand, but on the other hand, um, they would often like show me a mirror, and that's it. And I'm very receptive to that kind of
Cool.
information. It's just for probably the first, in my
Yeah.
previous life, it wasn't as obvious what was
Okay.
happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But being shown the mirror is a really helpful form of mentorship. Yeah. I understand that quite a bit. I love the way you kind of couched it as situational mentorship, because I think I've had instances of the same, and it's interesting how sometimes people just kind of emerge to help you,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
like
yeah,
wonderful Francesca, who just was so memorable, and I hope she's doing well out in the world.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
um,
Same. I
yeah,
probably need to write her an
yeah.
email. Yeah, but
Did
yeah,
you have,
yeah,
so I'm curious about so you mentioned you love academia because, okay, I want to come back to that, your competitive streak,
yeah,
because
yeah,
I'm also the
yeah,
same. I think I had an experience with my 1 year design program when I was switching careers, decided to go into design, and I showed up like it was Project Runway. I was like, I'm going to win this competition. I'm ready.
yes.
Like, I know how to nail this year. But I'm curious, before we get into that, I'm curious about how what was your relationship like to education and school when you were younger? And did you have similar kind of mentors along the way, or like what's changed between now and then in terms of how you think about learning? Those were like three big questions
Um,
all in one. So take any
yeah.
of them in any order.
Um, I think to me, education is a very like it. It is such an integral part of
Mm.
myself by
Mm-hmm.
osmosis, and by proxy. I will explain in 2 minutes. You will understand why. But that to me, it's very hard. It's almost like asking about relationship with
Hmm.
walking, right? At what point walking came into my life?
Right.
Well, at some point I started walking, right? And since then, like maybe I've taken running,
Mm-hmm.
but because so my grandma was a calculus teacher, right? And in a way, I was kind of she was from a very small village, and do you still
Yep,
hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. Sorry. So yeah, she was from a very small village, and I think she always had like this a bit of inferiority complex. So she absolutely had to be sure that by the time I go to the university, I will be like the best in calculus, right? Because she was not sure if I like am I even able to do
Mm.
that. I of course was able to do
Yes.
that, but the amount of drilling that went into me, like honestly, this is why I think that anyone can do
Mm-hmm.
math if they do have enough opportunities to just be ruthlessly drilled on
Yes.
that,
Yeah.
right? But so basically, and she before that she was a physics teacher, and she was always embedded first in school systems and then in kind of like higher trade education. My great grandma was a director of a school, a
Mm-hmm.
principal, and a head of, and this was also like in the middle of the 20th century in the village, which means like she has also other duties, not just like a head of the school,
Mm.
but the teachers had to behave in a certain way.
Uh-huh.
They had to be this like example for the community,
Mm.
and so on and so forth. The one woman behind that, before that, she also was kind of like vice. We could call it like a vice VP at the
Mm.
school, I guess. And my mom, who swore she will be an engineer, that she will not be a teacher, she's now a computer science,
Uh-huh.
a computer science teacher and a coach. She is very, very well known in Ukraine. She recently redid a part of high school program because she believes now that Ukrainian kids have to have the world class computer science at high
Uh-huh.
school. So,
Amazing.
and she also works a lot with kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Incredible.
I feel like I'm genetic. If anything, I've been genetically
Yes.
bred to be. I was born with an educational
So you were molded by it.
um, gene, yeah, molded by it. So
Yeah.
to me, the relationship is always like very, very kind of direct, because when you have so many like such a strong teaching tradition in the house, it's not questioned,
Mm-hmm.
right? It has good side, like it has interesting sides
Mm-hmm.
to that. So this is one thing. The other part is that I come from a ridiculously small town in eastern Ukraine, and I grew up in the period of in the 90s, which is like biggest economic and other adversities after the fall of Soviet
Mm-hmm.
Union. And so my parents, they had access to technology, and they knew, basically they believed, it's not like they believed in power of education, no, they knew that to be
Mm-hmm.
competitive, me and my brother just have to be educated to the nines,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that in every way, shape and
Yeah.
form, discipline
Yeah.
or practice,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
uh,
So
so
education was really
this
seen
yeah,
as a ticket to freedom, to well-being, to security. Yeah. Okay.
absolutely,
Yep.
absolutely. And basically like the only way kind of to live, because my mom opened computer classes in
Mm.
1994, I think,
Amazing.
and she had parents, well, she taught basically kids and adults how to use the computer, because that was your mobility
Mm-hmm.
passport, social mobility way to the better life. If you could create an archive, a Word document, and send an
Mm-hmm.
email, you would just get a much different job and
Yeah.
opportunities. And so she had parents coming in and kind of taking their kids from the classes, because they said they wouldn't need education because they will be working like in resell, basically like buying stuff
Wow.
in
Yep.
Poland, for
Yep.
example,
Huh.
bringing that to Ukraine and reselling that, like they don't need that. And my mom was like, "You don't
Yeah.
get it. They actually do need it." So, and we do have again, because I saw her influencing her like high
Mm.
schoolers, and most often their parents. It's like if you live in a small town and you have a really talented kid, but their parents think that they shouldn't go and study in the capital because the capital will somehow spoil
Hmm.
them, right? Or they don't believe that the kid is able to perform. And my mom done a lot of almost like evangelistic job in persuading to let them go at least, like maybe not the capital, maybe let's find something in the region,
Yeah.
but not here.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So you grew up with a real, education. The importance of learning was like literally drilled into you, but also it sounds like really nurtured, and supported as well. Okay. How do you think about learning now? Has that changed much?
it did.
I thought so.
It
Yeah.
did. Um, because I think in at least three different
Mm.
ways. Is one of them is um, I think I discovered one of them is that I discovered there are more ways of learning than traditional, let's call it
Hmm.
academic one, right? That not all learning is
Yeah.
academic, but also not everything that is academic is learning.
Yes. Yes. True
Yeah.
and true.
So that was my first and biggest discovery, only because I think both like growing up and then proceeding through adulthood, adolescence, and even with my degree here in London, which happened relatively late in life by Ukrainian standards,
Hmm.
29 years, too late to do anything. But right, but I think I was exposed mostly to one type of
Mm.
learning, but then I started I started discovering other, just like again other things, even like other
Yeah.
methods, and by now I how to say, yeah, and it made me rethink.
Mm.
It made me rethink a lot of things, including things like credentialism, right? Things like external metrics of meanings, external
Mm.
metric of
Hmm.
status, right? How should we, even the proverbial having the diploma, not having the diploma, but like a lot of those things I taken as a granted. I had to basically revise my worldview. So this is one
Mm.
thing. Second part is I took this course in Coursera 12 years ago, learning how to learn.
Okay.
It's like it's. I think it's one of the most popular ones. But basically, the idea of that course is that it's about, it's not about metacognition per
Mm.
se, right? But it's about literally how we learn. What is focused mode of thinking? What is diffuse mode of
Mm.
thinking, right? And then how do we build new information? Like what is chunking, right? Why you should never apparently cram a night before exams if you want to have anything
Uh-huh.
retained. I never knew that.
Now we know. Now we
Right,
know.
so
Don't cram
now we know.
before the night before. Yeah.
No,
But
yeah,
can you
so
still
and
produce
it's,
things the night before? Can you still like you still procrastinate?
I mean, that's just the
I know.
way. Like if you don't have stress fueled
That's right.
adrenaline,
Are you
yeah,
even
like
learning?
how do you even, yeah, exactly. If it doesn't come with a bit of
Hmm.
cortisol,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Is it even learning? Also, we do remember bad, painful things much better and
Interesting.
vividly
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
not, right? So basically, what I'm trying to say is that to me, the whole notion of both, like, of education was, I thought it was always coming from
Hmm.
learning, but actually it had a lot of other things, like I mentioned, like again, meaning, status,
Yeah.
credentialism, who gets, even like who gets to be in
Yeah.
academia, right? Because whenever I'm reading posts, I'm leaving academia, we shouldn't go to universities, and I think, well, let's think, like, first you have to leave academia, you have to enter
Hmm.
academia, right? So basically I realized that education to me, a lot of concepts were just like
Yes.
smooshed, and I was able to slowly, one by
Love it.
one, unpick some of
Yep.
them, again, reevaluate a number of
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
as
I
well.
I love
Yeah.
this. So yeah, education as being this kind of bundle. It's almost like a very kind of like encrusted idea. But I mean, I was thinking about how you're saying competition earlier, even with yourself. It's just sort of like, yeah, meaning, status, credentials,
Yeah.
proving to myself that I can do it, I can get that A, or I can get that, high level scholarship or top of the class or whatever. Um, yeah,
And
yeah,
last thing, oh, sorry, last third thing that I think this is the biggest in the last, I will say decade or so, only because I have no short memory anyway. But basically, last decade was also about discovering the complexity of relational
yeah.
elements
Okay, talk more
and
about that.
how, yeah, yeah. So basically, how much, um, I want to say connection. Basically, how much again we do have this
Mm-hmm,
responsibility between each
mm-hmm,
other, right? How much everything about um, good education is essentially it is a story of everything is a
mm-hmm,
relationship, right? But good education story will be about interpersonal connections between things, connections between concepts, and connections between objects, and then between people as well. And then how does everything basically impacts everything.
mm-hmm,
And I think that this is the big puzzle that was just not present
mm-hmm.
before.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. So that tees us up really beautifully to talk about liminal learning. And yeah, I was just thinking about even the frame for it. If we think about some of the ways that education has historically traditionally been bundled together, and there are different ways in different cultures and different areas, but there's a lot of commonality in terms of kind of your standard education. A lot of those things are encrusted. It's learning. It's about discipline. It's about XYZ achievement. It's security, things like that. We are trying to bundle education, the bundle of education and learning, I should say, that liminal learning is trying to do is trying to bundle a different set of things together. And I'm curious if you can just talk about like what are the things that what has drawn you to be involved in liminal learning, and what are some of those things that we're trying to bundle that you see as being really valuable or really important?
Oh, again, this is such a good question. Right. Uh, okay. Um, I think that for liminal learning, the biggest thing that attracts me is I think it is the ability to infuse meaning,
Hmm.
right? This because we again with liminal learning, what we talk about a lot is how does this transition, how does this transition from adolescence to
Mm-hmm.
adulthood, right? What does it entail? Does it happen when when you are 18 or 21? Probably
Mm-hmm.
not, right? Is this when you can drive a car? Also
Yeah.
probably not. Is this when your like prefrontal cortex is fully shaped? You know what? Also probably not, right? Is this first job? Is this like any sort of those markers? Is this first serious relationship? Is this heartbreak? Is this like what is this? And to me, I think it is. Um, and there's no right answer to that. But to me, again, what attracts me the most is the opportunity to infuse this transition with
Hmm.
meaning,
Cool.
and with meaning for the other, for the person who is being in the
Mm-hmm.
transition, right? And to help, to allow them and empower them to navigate that question on their own terms. So it's not like, hey, we will show you the way and this is the
Mm-hmm.
way, right? We will tell you what the meaning of life is. But this is the ability, again, the ability to inject meaning into your own
Mm-hmm.
life earlier. Because to me, like all these changes we were discussing, maybe not in not a very structured way from my side, but a lot of things changed once I was able to do
Hmm.
that.
Yeah.
So this is what attracts me the
Mm-hmm.
most. Yeah.
Amazing. I love that. I love that. The just even infusing this moment or this time with meaning, and it's also sort of acknowledging the meaning that's already there. It's like, no, we want to name that this is a really meaningful um, process and moment of transition. Um, yeah,
Yeah, and it's
that's
like
great.
helping. How I don't like the word helping, but I don't like have a better word for that. But it's like allowing someone to succeed on their terms in a period where you maybe not even aware of, like you cannot verbalize your own terms, but they obviously
Yeah.
exist, right? They may not be, it's like maybe it's a bit part of that work will be
Yep.
architectural, right? Blueprints and
That's
all of
right.
that, and part will be definitely
Yep.
archaeological, but like they are already there. They do not, like your values and norms, and again, ways to orient your metaphysical compass, they are there. They do not like emerge magically at
Yeah.
25.
Yeah. Yeah. That I love it. It's
Right.
like it's supporting emergence and encouraging emergence. And I love architectural and archaeological. Both are true. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes it's also like, vintage thrifting
Yeah.
approach, like
Yeah.
going into that. And also, so this is one thing. And one is just like, for me, it's very personal question because I have a lot of family stories. Like, again, my great grandma helped a large group of young men who came from Second World War to prepare them to enter universities. And she succeeded in that so much. They all did. Again, I've been watching the work my mom was doing with her talented kids and the work she's still
Yeah.
doing. So, like, again, they are all entering all the competitions, all the volunteering stuff. They are trying to run their own startups and so on and so forth. And all of them kind of have this, I would call it like very organic approach of like what's working and what's not working. And what's working is the model of like, again, shared kind of village school where the older kids teach younger kids something, where there's constant like knowledge exchange. And again, maybe it's not very formal, but it is existing and happening. And so to me, it's just, I feel like I'm continuing the part of work
Yeah.
they were doing. In my way, in a way that is natural to me, because one thing I never wanted to do is go to formal school system or education.
Interesting. Yep. Yep. So this is a continuation of that. Um, we're almost at time, but one last question for you. I'm successfully keeping all your questions away from me. I'm sure you've noticed.
I know. No, that's really, really
I
well
know.
done.
I'm like
Really
seeing you
well done.
formulate a question. I'm like, no, no, I have more. Um,
I made a couple of notes for
okay,
my
great,
own
great,
interviews.
perfect. But I'm curious if there is something that you hope. So the young people that participate in liminal learning, we've already gone through one quest at this point, which is incredible. And that cohort is, we're sort of with them through the next year. I'm curious if there's one thing that you really hope that the young people who participate in liminal learning can walk away with, knowing something, having skill or aptitude in something. What's one thing you hope that we give them through this experience?
Another good question, Catherine. Another good question. I would say two things. And one of them is figuring out and like feeling and living what you bring to the table, so to speak. Right? So, again, this is your set of talents. This is what you bring to the table. And I think, because I think we saw a couple of examples from this quest with questers being able to do that. And this is such a magical feeling of being confident in your own skin, just like that.
Yep.
Right? And I think that this is one of the things that the earliest, it's like doing your first pull-up,
Yeah.
right? It is in a way the hardest pull-up, because you have to figure out, your body has to figure out the whole new motion for that. And all the rest of the pull-ups will be a question of practice.
Beautiful.
But the first one is the toughest one. So like kind of get them to for this first pull-up. So it is, I'm training to do pull-ups, you can see right now. But so basically this ability, I think that the earliest it comes in life, the better, because then you just flex it
I love it.
to a
Yeah.
degree. So this is the
So
first
important.
thing. And the second thing is, it is absolutely important. It is. And the second thing is practical respect and appreciation for complexity. Because this is what, and I don't mean, again, I mean complexity because everything in the world is complex. Our planet is complex. All the connections and interconnections and all of that. And what we are seeing a lot in the
I
world
was going
right
to
now
say,
is
our futures are
oversim-
complex in many ways. And the world is complex. Yeah.
exactly. and what we are seeing right now is a lot of tendencies to oversimplify that complexity, to disrespect that complexity,
Mm,
and basically ignore how delicate and fragile a lot of things
mm,
are. And I feel like if a person has a sort of respect and appreciation for complexity, it may not be the most practical or even as a skill, or even like the skill that will make you happy in life. But all the
yeah.
time at least. But I feel like this is something that helps you navigate the
Mm,
world.
hmm hmm
Yeah, that's it.
I love that.
What do you
I
think?
love that. I love just the idea of almost respecting the complexity, but almost protecting it as well, because some things are fragile and some things are nuanced about ourselves, about relationships with each other, about the world itself. Yeah,
Exactly. And the moment like this, kind of what you bring to the table,
yeah,
and complexity, like, and this appreciation, not reverence, maybe not like reverence, not fanaticism,
hmm
but just appreciation for
hmm
complexity. I think the moment they click
yeah,
like this, and the moment they just touch something inside a
hmm
person, it's for everyone. It's going to be something
yeah,
different. And I think like from
yeah.
this, anything can grow.
Yeah. And how could you not understand yourself as a very vital node, but also one tiny node in a larger thing? And I think
Yeah,
learning both of those things is so important. As you said, the earlier the better. So
yeah,
beautiful.
yeah.
Olena, thank you so much. What a great conversation.
Oh,
Really appreciate it.
Catherine, what a joy. No, always, what a
Yes.
joy. What a joy. Thank you.